listening to The Still Small Voice. I'm Jennifer, your host, the Still Small Voice Whisperer. Thank you for joining me today. I am hoping this podcast gets you thinking, intuiting, listening, and maybe even acting on your still small voice. I'm a little different. I feel I should tell you this up front. I spend a lot of time in silence and solitude because I cannot be myself without it. I do what I do without necessarily checking in with others and the world around me. This makes me a seemingly socially awkward and antisocial person. However, I just don't abide by doing things because everyone else is doing it or because that's what you're supposed to do. So with that in mind, I want to let you know that these podcast episodes are going to be a bit different. You don't need to listen to me talk. You don't need more information from a guest interview, or any more information at all, actually, from anyone. Except for you. You need your information, and you need to hear from you. So this is what we're going to do. You are the guest this season. I'm going to interview you. In each episode, I'm going to ask you questions, and I'll give you about 3 minutes for the answers. I invite you to speak out the answers just like you're the guest. Or maybe you need to answer them in your mind instead of out loud if you're listening to this at work or in a public place, or not. You do you. Here's your opportunity to listen to the most intelligent, loving, and authoritative person in your own life. Others know things and can teach you, but at the end of the day, it really is all about you. It's about what you think and believe that really, really matters. We can spend too much time listening to others and not to ourselves. All right, let's get started. Welcome to Listening to the Still Small Voice. I'm so excited to be interviewing you. Thank you for being on the podcast today. You have decades of experience in work, education, relationships, and overall life experience. I am so excited to hear from you today and about how you are in the world. Last week, we talked about relationships and ended the episode talking about the relationships in our work or our vocation. You know, work and vocation can be such a loaded topic, almost, and sometimes if not more so than even relationships, Things need to happen and get done, and sometimes you're lucky enough to work in your calling, and other times a job just needs to be a job, and that's okay. So I just want to remind you before we get started and I start asking questions that you get to decide what I mean and how to define these things so these questions work for you. Again, we ended that last episode talking about who you want to work with and what those relationships would look like. With that in mind, I just want to ask about it again. What would your still small voice have your work relationships look like? Our interactions with others are so telling, especially our dream interactions. So, with these interactions, what does your still small voice have you doing for work or your vocation, paid or otherwise? Is it what you do now, or is it something completely different? Interesting. So, does this light you up? Like, is this like how you want to be in the world? Does it feel like, yes, this is what I'm like made to be here for? Or is this a stepping stone, or is there something else behind that motivation? I'm just curious. Wow, I love this. For some people, their calling has nothing to do with their work and their job, and for others, like that's what it's all about. Would you say that's the case for you? Are they tied together, or are they related, or are they maybe separate? I just want to, we can mix things up in so different ways, and we can forget that there's so many ways to kind of do this thing, to do work, to do life, to do, kind of what we're called to do. And I just wanted to clarify: is it tied together for you, or is it something else? Work and vocation or soul calling or whatever you want to say, however you want to call it, it can be such a tricky thing to navigate. And I know it can change also depending on life circumstances and kind of how you're showing up in the world. I was going to say, has your still small voice said different things to you in different times of your life, and kind of like what were they and how has that changed as you've grown, or has it been consistent? I have friends who they've known their path in life since I met them back when they were like 18, 19, and man, I mean I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So I'm curious like how that might have changed for you during your lifetime. Thank you so much for taking the time today to come on the show and sharing more about your experiences. I know our audience finds them invaluable. I'd like to have you back on the show to learn more if you'd be willing. I know our listener needs to hear from you more than ever. I'm looking forward to hearing more from you next week. So what did you think? Weird? Fun? A little bit of both? There's more where that came from. Come back next week and we will learn more. Thanks for joining me today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next time. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm so glad. If you didn't, that's great too. Thanks for giving it a try. You can do all the things: subscribe, rate, review, emoji it up if you feel so called. I appreciate any feedback you have. Please reach out to me on Facebook at The Still Small Voice Whisperer.